This podcast is sponsored by AXA Farm Insurance. AXA offers tailored cover to fit your unique needs, whether it's public liability or protection for your family home, outbuildings or farm vehicles. Based in Athlone, the AXA Farm team of agri-specialists and regional managers work together to ensure you receive the seamless support you need. Switching to AXA is easy thanks to an innovative online service that enables you to quickly and easily find the best cover for your needs. For more information, head to AXA.ie. AXA Insurance DAC is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to the Farming Week, the podcast brought to you by Agriland and AXA, keeping you up to date with all the latest in Irish agriculture. I'm Charles O'Donnell and I'm joined by Agriland journalist Aisling O'Brien. Well, there was some long-awaited good news this week for the group of farmers commonly referred to as forgotten farmers. These are farmers who were not able to avail of CAP supports for young farmers due to the way timelines fell between aid programmes for young farmers in multiple CAP programmes. There has long been calls from farm organisations to provide funding for the impacted farmers in recognition of this anomaly in support payments, and now this week those calls have come to fruition. What's been the update, Aisling?
Yes, Charles. So, as you said, the forgotten farmers, or the long-established young farmers, as the Department of Agriculture refers to them, they are, as you said, defined as individuals who were under 40 in 2015 and began farming before 2008. And as you rightly said, due to the timing of when they entered agriculture, they were actually excluded from young farmer supports under the 2015 Common Agricultural Policy, meaning that they missed out on installation aid and other key supports which would have been available to their counterparts. So the Department of Agriculture carried out a survey in May of this group, and then this week on Tuesday we got confirmation from the department that a scheme was now open for applications for the forgotten farmers. And as we previously spoke about here as part of our budget 2025 coverage, there was €5 million earmarked to provide support to this group of farmers. So the amount paid to successful applicants, we're being told, is going to be dependent on the number of successful applications received, but the amount will not exceed €5,000 for any one successful applicant. So €5,000 is going to be the ceiling per farmer here. And online applications can be submitted up until 5:30 on August 13th. So that is a kind of a tight enough window. So if this does apply to you, make sure you get involved. So there is some T's and C's, as always, with these schemes. And to be eligible for this long-established young farmers support, an applicant has to have submitted a basic income support for sustainability, or BIS, application under a herd number on which the farmer is included in 2025. They have to have submitted an application under the Basic Payment Scheme, the BPS, in 2015 under a herd number on which the farmer is included. They have to be aged no more than 40 in 2015, which means they were born on or after January 1st, 1975. They have to have set up as the head of an agricultural holding for the first time on or before December 31st, 2007, have successfully completed a recognised agricultural education course at FETAC level 6 or the equivalent by May 29th, 2015. They cannot previously have benefited under the Young Farmer Installation Aid Scheme, and they also could not have benefited under the Basic Payment Scheme National Reserve, including allocations under the so-called Scottish derogation, which was for people who never held entitlements under the Single Payment Scheme, but who actively farmed in 2013. So they are the terms and conditions that the department outlined, and the application has to be submitted online, as is the case with the vast majority, if not all schemes now, through the Ag Food portal available through DAFM. Now, the department said that a successful application to this scheme does not actually confer, doesn't mean that you're automatically going to be entitled to a payment under this scheme, and cross-checks will be made by the department to ensure that the cumulative state aid payments across various state aid measures made to the individual farmers in respect of the previous 3 fiscal years do not exceed the €50,000 state aid limit under EU rules. So that might come into play as well for some farmers out there. So obviously, as you said, Charles, this has been long called for by farm organisations and politicians alike. And one of the politicians reacting this week to the announcement was Chair of the Oireachtas Committee on Agriculture and Food, Andreas Moynihan. But he's welcomed the scheme, but he called for increased funding to support the forgotten farmers. And the Fianna Fáil TD for Cork Northwest said that the €5 million allocated in budget 2025 to support this group is only a first step in righting historic wrongs. And he said this is about justice and fairness. And he said the farmers were unfairly excluded from critical supports through no fault of their own. He said they've been overlooked for far too long. And this scheme is long overdue in terms of recognition of their contribution to Irish agriculture. And he said he welcomes the scheme's introduction, but he feels it's only the beginning. And he said that the payment of up to €5,000 per farmer won't fully make up for the years of lost support. And he said he's going to continue to raise this issue with the Minister for Agriculture, Martin Hayden, during the upcoming budget negotiations. And he says if we're going to right a wrong, we must ensure that we get it right. Now, the Irish Farmers Association Rural Development Chair John Kern also reacted and said that the scheme is long overdue, but he said what's on the table falls far short of what the installation aid was in the past and that is what they're looking for. And he said he made this clear with the minister when they met to discuss their overall priorities for the upcoming budget this week. He said that €5 million was allocated in the last budget, and he said that there were commitments made that more would be secured if needed. And John Kern said the minister now needs to follow through on this and secure the necessary funding and ensure that all forgotten farmers are not forgotten again. And he said that all eligible farmers, including those starting out in 2008 and thereafter, should get at least the equivalent amount as they would have received under the installation aid. Now, the Irish Creamery Milk Suppliers Association also welcomed the scheme, but again, some issues with the terms and conditions here, saying that the eligibility criteria that has been outlined is unfairly narrow and restrictive. And the ICMSA Deputy President, Eamon Carroll, said several outstanding issues remain to be addressed. And he said it was a matter of regret that the scheme risked excluding many deserving applicants. And he said a significant concern is the cut-off date of December 31st, 2007, which he said would exclude many farmers now in their late 40s or early 50s. And he called on the Department of Agriculture to extend the eligibility to include all farmers who entered the sector before 2015 and who never received young farmer payments. So it'll be interesting to see, Charles, if there are any tweaks ahead of budget 2026 to this scheme. But it is open now for applications. So if you are one of the forgotten farmers, just keep that date in mind. August 13th, 5:30 is the cutoff there.
Well, we're going to move on now and talk about a very serious and still developing story, which is the outbreak of listeriosis arising from prepared dinners that were produced and packaged in Ireland. This outbreak has, it's understood, resulted in one death as well as several other cases of infection. Aisling, can you tell us more about it?
Yes, Charles, this is, as you said, a very serious story. So on Sunday, Agriland first reported that various branded turkey and ham dinners were being recalled by the Food Safety Authority of Ireland, the FSAI, due to the possible presence of Listerio monocytogenes. And the products were produced by Ballymaguire Foods. Now, what we were told was symptoms of Listeria infection could include mild flu-like symptoms or gastrointestinal symptoms such as nausea, vomiting and diarrhea, and in rare cases the infection can be more severe, causing serious complications. And the FSAI noted that some people are more vulnerable to listeria infections, including pregnant women, babies, and people with weakened immune systems, including the elderly. And the incubation period, which is the time between the initial infection and first symptoms appearing in a person, is on average 3 weeks, but can range between 3 and 70 days. So then we received confirmation yesterday on Wednesday that the Food Safety Authority had issued a recall notice for a wider range of branded prepared dinners across several different ingredients, branded ranges and retailers. And the list of impacted products, which were again supplied by Ballymaguire Foods, extends to over 140 individual branded dinners and side dishes. Now, these meals and side dishes include certain products for Tesco, SuperValu, Centra, Aldi, The Happy Pear, and other brands. And the FSAI has published a full list of the recalled products on its website and has requested retailers to remove the implicated products from sale and display recall notices as well at point of sale, which informs shoppers when they're in the shop to be aware if they've bought these products previously and may have them at home. So the FSAI said that products of all pack sizes, all batches, and all best before dates are implicated. For all products, the country of origin is Ireland. And retailers, as I said, they're being requested to remove these products from sale. Wholesalers and distributors are requested to contact their affected customers and recall the implicated products and provide point of sale recall notices to their retail customers. Caterers should not use, obviously, these products either. And when it comes to consumers, Charles, this is very important because there's an awful lot of products involved here across a huge amount of different ranges and types of dishes as well. And so consumers are advised not to eat any of these implicated products and to check their freezers if they may have any of these products that they've bought them in the recent past and to dispose of them as well. And just to be very, I suppose, mindful that, this is potentially a dangerous infection. Now, Ballymaguire Foods has confirmed as well in a statement yesterday that it temporarily suspended all production at one of its facilities as a precautionary measure following a recall of various branded prepared meals and side dishes. And the company said it had initiated a full precautionary recall of all products produced at one of its facilities following the identification of listeria bacteria as part of a quality control check. And it said that incidents of this nature are extremely rare for the company, and they said they're treating it with the utmost seriousness and are working closely with all parties to manage the situation swiftly and responsibly. And they said that immediately upon identifying the issue, they informed their retail and food service customers and engaged with all of the relevant authorities, including the Food Safety Authority of Ireland, the Health Service Executive, and the Regional Environmental Health Officer as well. And the company said it made the decision on Saturday to temporarily suspend all production at the affected facility. And they said that their internal team, supported by independent external experts, conducted a comprehensive assessment and implemented immediate corrective actions. And that actually included a full pharmaceutical grade clean down of the facility. And they said that in consultation with the relevant statutory bodies and their customers, they will resume production once it is confirmed safe to do so. And the company apologised to customers and consumers for the concern that this may cause. But as you rightly said at the introduction to this piece, sadly, the Food Safety Authority of Ireland confirmed yesterday that one person has actually died from a listeriosis infection, which is usually acquired, the authority said, as a result of eating contaminated food. And the HSE is currently investigating the death of the adult. And the executive said that 9 confirmed cases of listeriosis have now been identified in Ireland since Tuesday, and that a national outbreak control team is currently investigating the extensive outbreak of listeriosis. And according to the FSAI, a voluntary precautionary food recall of ready-to-heat meals is underway due to a link with the outbreak. So, as I said, Charles, make sure to go onto the FSAI website. There's obviously a huge amount of products implicated in this recall. So just to make sure that if you have those at home, just to make sure not to consume them and to throw them out.
Moving on now, and this week saw the unveiling of the government's latest National Development Plan. While the priorities in the plan were, of course, issues like housing and infrastructure, there was additional funding allocated to the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine. Aisling, do we know what that funding will be used for?
Yeah, we got an indication from Minister for Agriculture Martin Hayden of how he's going to use an additional €160 million, which has been earmarked for the Department of Agriculture under this revised National Development Plan. So overall, the National Development Plan has a total investment of some €275 billion between 2026 and 2035. So the Department of Agriculture's slice of that will be a capital allocation of just over 1.6 billion euro. So the extra 160 million euro, the minister told us, which will be made over the period of 2026 to 2030, is going to be directed towards the TAMS scheme, the Targeted Agricultural Modernisation Scheme, and forestry as well. Now, the minister said that investing in TAMS is one of his department's key priorities over the lifetime of this government. And he said the investment supports competitiveness on Irish farms, generational renewal, and crucially supports slurry storage, which will be, of course, a critical component in supporting Ireland's case for the renewal of our nitrates derogation with the European Commission. Now, last month, we did report here on the podcast that the minister confirmed the approval of 100% of eligible applications received under tranches 6, 7 and 8 of TAMS 3. But the minister did note that TAMS is a demand-led scheme and there was a defined budgetary allocation. And he said at that time that that means that it may be necessary to limit the number of approved applications per tranche. So it'll be interesting to see if this additional funding might ease the pressure on TAMS, and hopefully we might not see as many limitations that maybe had been flagged prior to this revised National Development Plan announcement. So the rest of the extra money that the Department of Agriculture are set to get over the coming years, some of it will be also used for forestry, as I said, and it will fund the Forestry Windblow Reconstitution Scheme, which of course relates to the damage caused by storms DAERA and Éowyn. And we know that the storms damaged some nearly 26,000 hectares of forestry across the country, of which around 11,500 hectares are in private ownership. A Minister of State with responsibility for forestry, Michael Healy-Rae, said the additional funds will support the department in addressing forestry windblow damage due to those storms. So over the coming months, Charles, the different government ministers are going to be setting out their priority programmes and projects and how they intend to spend this money under the revised National Development Plan. And as you said, there is some major headings, of course, in terms of housing and infrastructure. Some interesting, I suppose, pledges of funding, €3.5 billion for funding for ESB and EirGrid to fund enhanced energy grid capacity, €2 billion being provided to Uisce Éireann in 2025 to enable the delivery of 300,000 additional homes up to 2030, a further €2.5 billion in funding being provided to Uisce Éireann for large-scale projects over the period to the end of the decade. And we're being told as well that there will be about €74 million allocated for 291 projects for wastewater treatment across the country as well. And those projects will range from minor works right up to capital investments of over €2 million. And as part of this revised plan as well, the Department of Rural and Community Development will receive some €1.3 billion over the coming years. Now, Sinn Féin has come out and reacted to this updated plan. It said it offers no clear vision for rural Ireland, and the party's spokesperson on rural affairs, community development and the Gaeltacht, Conor D. McGuinness, said the plan offers no targeted funding or project pipeline to address the everyday infrastructure deficits facing rural communities. He said there was no capital plan here for rural roads, rural housing or public transport. He said there was no investment path for digital hubs, Garda stations, community centres or rural health facilities. He said there was nothing new for the rural families, workers or communities who are struggling to access basic services. And he said there was no joined up thinking on how rural regeneration, social inclusion or local development will be delivered. I suppose if the government were here, they would say that the details will be forthcoming as the government ministers outline what their priorities were, and that maybe this was just the headlines this week, Charles. But an awful lot of money, and interesting to see how that extra money in the department has been allocated as well for the coming years.
Well, the unveiling of the National Development Plan comes at a time when Ireland and the EU is bracing for the economic headwinds that would result if no deal on tariffs is reached with the US. Well, the EU unveiled this week a €93 billion package of countermeasures in the event that trade talks with Donald Trump's administration fail. These countermeasures, should they prove necessary, will impact around €10.2 billion in goods imported by Ireland, although this figure is lower than previous government estimates. You can read more about that on Agriland.ie and the Agriland app. But moving on now, and this week Agriland has been putting a special focus on the issue of TB, and that's what we're going to talk about now. Aisling, at this point, I suppose we and our listeners and our readers know the story with the TB figures, that they're going in the wrong direction. But we do now have the latest 12-month figures up to last month. So what's the latest data?
Yeah, so the Department of Agriculture confirmed that a total of 43,290 bovine TB reactors were identified in the 12 months to June 2025. And the latest statistics also outlined that by the end of Q2 of this year, 6,449 herds were restricted on a 12-month rolling basis. And we also got confirmation that as of June 29th this year, the herd incidence for TB had soared to 6.4% compared to 5.17% in June 2024. So the increase in reactor numbers in the 12 months to June of this year resulted in a corresponding jump, of course, as well in overall spending in the TB eradication programme to the end of the second quarter. And that stood at more than €52 million, which represents a 21% year-on-year jump in total expenditure compared to the same quarter last year. And as we previously mentioned, Charles, on the podcast, Department of Agriculture officials have told the Oireachtas Joint Committee on Agriculture and Food in June that the overall cost to the exchequer of the TB programme for this year could be as high as €130 million if the disease stays at current levels. And then next year, that could rise to anything between 170 and 180 million euros. So really a lot of money being spent. And as you said, the figures going in the wrong direction all the time. And the primary driver of the increased costs has been compensation, we've been told, due to increased disease levels. And look, we are still awaiting proposals from government. Last month, Minister for Agriculture, Martin Hayden, said that he had received approval from Cabinet to address the escalating levels of bovine TB across the country, and we're still awaiting what those proposals. We have spoken about them here, on the podcast about what they may look like in terms of movements and wildlife and all the different components. So we're still awaiting that. But as you said, Charles, this week on Agriland, we did have a special focus called Silent Spread, Ireland's TB battle, and it examined, I suppose, the cost of the disease on a number of levels, both economic and emotional as well, and how this challenge may shape farming into the future and how it may shape government spending. Because when we're looking at, spends of well over €100 million a year at the current levels, if we, increase testing and detect more reactors, we'll need more compensation. So it's going to cost quite a lot of money to get a handle on this as well. So we also found out over the course of this week how maybe other countries have adopted new policies. We also looked at enhancing genetic resistance to TB, and we spoke to experts who are at the front line of the battle against this disease. And at the start of the week, we visited one Kerry dairy farmer who had lost his entire herd to TB, and to find out how he was coping after that devastation and also how he was rebuilding his herd and getting back into milking. And I suppose despite it being over 4 years now since Noel O'Connor lost his entire herd to TB, Charles, you could still see from the video on his farm how evident the scars still are today and the emotional toll all of that took on him. And he's based in Kilcooley in Ardfert, and he first experienced TB on his farm around 12 years ago. And he had two, I suppose, relatively minor outbreaks, which led to the herd being locked up for periods of 4 months maybe. But it was really in 2021 when the full brunt of a TB outbreak would be felt on his farm. And it was a group of weanlings which he had sold to another farmer in the previous year following a clear herd test on Noel's farm. And those animals later showed up as reactors several months later. And the result of all of that was the Department of Agriculture informed Noel that his herd would be restricted pending a herd test. And devastatingly, he ended up losing around a quarter of his herd following the initial test. And then more animals were lost following further blood and skin tests. And at that stage then, when he'd lost about half of his milking herd, he was offered depopulation by the Department of Agriculture. And he felt that, that might be the only course of action at that stage. And the day that the animals left his yard, it's etched in his memory. And you can hear it very clearly, the impact that day had on him from this clip.
The lack of sound was the hardest. When the animals are in, there's always a cow snorting or coughing or noising, scratching her head. She'd come up to you and she'd give you a nudge for a scratch or whatever else. But there was nothing, just...
Everything gone.
Yeah, everything gone.
So Charles, Noel and his family took some time off after losing his herd before they decided to buy more cows and get back into milking and to turn on the milking parlour again. But it is evident from the interview with Noel that the impact of what happened to him and his family is still very, very raw. And the fear of TB coming back onto his farm is very real as well. And he told me that their feeling is that it's just a matter of time before they go down again. And, you know, he did call for action at a national level to tackle this devastating disease. And look, if you haven't seen the interview with Noel, please do check it out, because I think it really does lay bare the emotional toll. We talk about numbers very often, Charles, but this is just one of those stories, one of those herds, one of those thousands of herds that go down with TB. And I think it really does lay bare the impact that TB can have on a farm family, on the animals, on the locality, on the community as well. And I really do want to thank Noel very sincerely, because it's not an easy thing to, I suppose, share very painful memories with the public. And I think that he's done a great service to a lot of other farmers out there who may be in similar situations and may feel very alone. So, you know, I think well done to Noel, and we wish him all the very best for the future.
Yeah, well said, Aisling, and I just want to echo those sentiments myself as well. Just staying with livestock for a moment, the Irish Cattle Breeding Federation has announced that there will be changes included in the next genetic evaluation, which will be published at the later date of September. You can check out coverage on that from Agriland's beef specialist Breffney O'Brien on our website and app. But moving on now, and Northern Ireland's Department of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs has permitted the voluntary use of 3 bluetongue serotype 3 vaccines in Northern Ireland. Aisling, can you tell us a bit more about this?
Yeah, so as we know, bluetongue, it's a viral disease, affects ruminants like cattle, sheep and goats, spread by biting midges. It is not present currently on the island of Ireland, and due to cases in Britain, the movement of live cattle and sheep from Britain to Northern Ireland and to the Republic of Ireland is currently suspended as well. But I suppose there is a constant risk here on the island that this disease could arrive and, would be devastating for our livestock sector to have bluetongue. You see the impact of it across Europe as well, Charles. And as you said, a move this week by the Department of Agriculture in Northern Ireland permitting the use of these vaccines against this serotype 3, I suppose, strain of bluetongue. So BTV3 is what you will see it referred to as well. So they're saying that they will allow the voluntary use of this subject to licensing. And they said these vaccines are intended to reduce the severity of clinical signs and mortality in affected animals, but they don't prevent infection or transmission. Now, Northern Ireland does remain, of course, as I said, free of the disease, but livestock keepers and veterinary practitioners will now be able to take early informed action as a precaution and as a secondary line of defence against the disease, DAERA said this week as well. And Minister for Agriculture in Northern Ireland, Andrew Murr, said while Northern Ireland does remain free of bluetongue, he's now taken the decision to allow the use of these vaccines to give farmers and livestock keepers an additional safeguard alongside surveillance, prompt detection and control as well. And look, Agriland has been in touch with the Department of Agriculture here in Dublin to see if it might be replicated on this side of the border as well. So we're waiting for confirmation on that. But if you're listening to us from Northern Ireland and this is something you may be interested in, clear guidance is available on the DAERA website to farmers, to vets and the wider industry about how the vaccine licensing process will work in practice. So if you want to check that out, it's available on the DAERA website.
And just sticking with animal health matters for a moment, the start date for the upregulation for antiparasitics in the Republic of Ireland, making them prescription only, has been deferred again by Minister Hayden. It was due to start from September, which was itself a deferred date, but now that has been deferred again to December 1st. The Minister said this latest extension will be definitive. Now, this week is, of course, the official Farm Safety Week, and to coincide with that, the Minister with responsibility for farm safety, Michael Healy-Rae, has announced an important grant this week, Aisling.
Yes, Charles. So Minister Michael Healy-Rae, whose responsibility for farm safety, announced this week that the National Farm Safety Measure was reopening for applications. Now, this measure provides grant aid covering 60% of the eligible cost of up to 4 PTO shaft covers. And over the past decade, farm vehicles and machinery accounted for almost half of all fatalities on farms, and entanglement in PTO shafts has resulted in fatalities and, of course, life-changing injuries as well. Now, applications for this measure are open until Friday, the 7th of November, and it's applied at a rate of 60%, subject to a maximum eligible cost of €100 per PTO shaft cover for up to 4, as I said. Now, farmers who applied for grant aid under this measure in 2023 and 2024 are eligible to apply again this year. And Minister Michael Healy-Rae said the reopening of this measure is to encourage farmers to replace PTO shaft covers that are defective or missing as well. And he said that the greatest investment that farmers can make regarding farm safety is time. And that's, of course, time to identify the hazards on the farm and time to put corrective actions in place. And as you said rightly, Charles, the timing of this announcement is no coincidence, because this, of course, is Farm Safety Week 2025, which was an initiative originally launched over in the UK by the Farm Safety Foundation. It's coordinated here in Ireland by the IFA. And unfortunately, so far this year, to date, there have been 12 farming fatalities, which is actually the same amount as the total number of fatalities in farming in the whole of 2024. And of those 12 fatalities, 5 involved vehicles, and in 9 of the cases, the deceased were aged over 65. So I suppose everybody in the farming community is encouraging everybody involved in farming to use this week to take stock, to look at maybe the dangers on your farm and the risks that may be on your farm, and maybe to rectify those. And the IFA president, Francie Gorman, I think really summed it up this week when he said that this week is a powerful reminder that no job on the farm is worth a life. And just another interesting aspect, of course, it's not just safety but well-being that's covered by Farm Safety Week. And Fianna Fáil Agriculture spokesperson Peter Chapp-Clear said this week that in his view, mental health is just as important as physical safety on our farms. And he encouraged farmers to take a moment to check in on their own well-being and that of their families, their friends and their neighbours as well. And I suppose it's just, something that to bear in mind as well. If you're feeling under pressure, if you're finding it hard to cope, to reach out, to speak to somebody and to seek the right supports, because as Deputy Clear rightly said, there is no shame in asking for help.
Finally this week, one of the biggest events in the national dairy calendar is the Diageo Baileys Cow competition at the Virginia Show. And the judge for this year's event has been confirmed, Aisling.
Yes, so it is one of the most respected titles in the Irish Dairy Show calendar, the Diageo Baileys Champion Cow, and no doubt the competition will be fierce again this year. Of course, it is one of the highlights of the annual Virginia Show in County Cavan, which takes place on Wednesday, August 20th. So the honour of tapping out this year's winner goes to Italian breeder Giuseppe Beltramino, and he lives southwest of the Italian city of Turin in the region of Piedmont. And he's a 40-year history of winning on the international showing circuit, so is certainly very qualified for the job. And his family runs the well-known Bell Holstein herd, and he remains actively involved in managing and exhibiting homebred cows alongside his brothers as well. And it is his first judging appointment in Ireland, Charles, and Giuseppe did give some insight into what he may be looking for in his winner. And he said, when judging dairy cows, his first priority is production potential. I want to see a cow that looks like she can work hard and last. The winning cow will be balanced and have the overall presence that makes a great cow. And we look forward to that competition coming up in just a couple of weeks' time.
Well, that unfortunately brings us to the end of today's podcast. Please don't forget to rate, review and follow The Farming Week on Spotify, Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love if you could spare some time to give us 5 stars and share The Farming Week with anyone you think might be interested. From Aisling and myself, all the best.
This podcast is sponsored by AXA Farm Insurance. AXA offers tailored cover to fit your unique needs, whether it's public liability or protection for your family home, outbuildings or farm vehicles. Based in Athlone, the AXA Farm team of agri-specialists and regional managers work together to ensure you receive the seamless support you need. Switching to AXA is easy thanks to an innovative online service that enables you to quickly and easily find the best cover for your needs. For more information, head to AXA.ie. AXA Insurance Stack is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.